Assalamu alaikum. Sulaiman Rahim here, Master of the Covenant, breaker of 7 seals. Let's bring in my audio family. This is the Black Alert Hour of the Fire Zone. Sisters and brothers, we're going to talk about controlled violence. It's a very difficult, complex subject. I think it's necessary to talk about it. I'm going to do the best I can with it. But again, like I said, it's very complicated, so bear with me. 1 second here. Okay, brothers and sisters, what do I mean by controlled violence? We're dealing with a very violent enemy. That's Adam, who was created to make mischief, shed blood. His nature is violent. His very nature is violence. He manifests his energy in a violent manner. We're talking about the Europeans here. Now, they were produced by Dr. Yaqub 6,000 years ago. They were the personification of our energy deprivation problem. Those of you who are not familiar with energy deprivation, the short version is the universe expands. All the energy out there used to be here. The cave we call the Big Bang. They said all the energy was the size of an atom. Anyway, all the energy was here, and now it's out there. When it was here, we were awesome. We had all that energy. We was unimaginable relative to what we are today. But as the universe expanded, there was less and less energy until it got to its near full expansion, right? There's very little energy. So we did not have enough energy to maintain ourselves, enough energy to maintain civilization, right? It takes energy for everything. Energy to see, energy to think, energy to talk, energy to bat your eyes. It takes energy for everything. And we didn't have enough energy to even maintain ourselves. See? And now the universe is contracting, the energy is coming back in waves of approximately in frequencies of 50 years, and we get a positive energy wave. So now we're being reinvigorated, re-energized. See? And the first positive energy wave came back around the 1860s. That caused us to have enough energy to break free of our physical chains. See? The next one came 50 years later. We started breaking free of our mental chains. That's with Noble Drew Ali and Marcus Garvey and Elijah and different things like that, right? And then 50 years later, we broke our social change in the 60s. See the pattern there? Also corresponds to the music, because the blues, our first form of recognized music, was the blues, because we had the blues when we was first freed, because they didn't free us because they loved us. They freed us because they no longer needed us. They went from the agricultural revolution, era, age to the industrial age. So they started making machines and things to do the things that they used to force us to do. See? So they didn't free us because they loved us. They freed us because they no longer needed us. And then 50 years later, jazz, we started getting jazzy, started learning about our history, Africa and things like that. And then 50 years, right? Motown sound. Everybody started black and proud, right? Started getting, uh, getting connected with their blackness, afros and that kind of thing. That's 50 years later. See, so the music followed our reinvigoration, because music is an extension of a person's nature, and our music is dominating the world. And then now we're 50 years later, and we're about to receive a burst of energy. It says it's momentous in the heavens and earth, but it comes above a sudden. That means energy has to be absorbed by the earth, and the earth, because it comes in energy waves, every probably 50 years called jubilees. So it's absorbed by the earth, and then the earth has converted to a form that we can use. Energized soil, energized air, so forth, so on. And we're about to realize that pretty soon. That's going to be because we broke the physical chains, then we broke the mental chains, then we broke the social chains, and now we're going to break all chains. That's what's happening right now, brothers and sisters. So you're going to see a revolution like you never saw before. The birth of a new nation. See, not false Israel. So, control violence. So when Yaqub made them, they know to be violent by nature. Their energy would manifest in a violent way. And the purpose of them being made, because we had lost the ability to maintain civilization, didn't have the energy for it, so Yaqub generated a stripped down version of us. A stripped down version of us. So in other words, if we love Lamborghinis, right, then he took and stripped all the accessories and everything else and produced a Volkswagen Beetle, which didn't require as much energy. See? So if you look at it like you make $1,000 a day, right, and a Lamborghini requires $1,500. I mean, if you make $1,000 a month, and Lamborghini requires $1,500 a month to maintain it, insurance and all the other things, then you run a $500 deficit. You're in debt just to maintain that, just to have it. But if you have a Volkswagen Beetle and it only requires $50, $500 a month, then you got $500 a month disposable income. So you're driving all around town, you're doing your thing because you have extra money. And that's the nature that's the science behind Dr. Yaqub, because he made a stripped down version of us, all the accessories gone, compassion, mercy, conscious, just a violent people, stripped down version, a beast. See? They don't have all the trappings of civilization and those type of things. They don't have that. See, they had to be taught to them. That's why it says, the scripture says, they were under the law. See, we didn't have any law before them. We didn't need it. Does birds have law? Does lions have law? Does eagles have law? Does sharks have law? Are they wiser than us? No, because then they follow their nature. But if your nature is contrary, you have to be trained. See, if you're going to put a lion in a circus, you got to train him, because that's not his nature. You have to train him up to do that. You have to train up the elephant. So for them to rule, they had to be trained. They had to be put under the law. See, the law is to train them to have a civilization, the rule of civilization. And they couldn't obey the law. See, that's another problem. So they had to be controlled. See, because they're the personification of our energy deprivation problem. I try to explain this energy personification issue, and I'm going to try to give it a short version here. If you take the winter, now we know how the winter has cold and slow. I mean, if you're talking about in a cold climate, right? The winter has snow, sleet, blizzards, ice storms, the whole works. But if you make a people that's personification of the winter, then the atmosphere would be like summer. It's just the people would be winter. And when you deal with those people, you're going to get a blizzard, you're going to get a snowstorm, you're going to get hail, you're going to get rain, you're going to get ice. You see what I'm saying? That's what I mean by personification. See? And so they became the personification of our energy deprivation problem. See? So it was, when you're in energy deprivation, that means you're in a state of bad luck. See? Because things don't work for you because you have negative energy. You don't have enough. You're still trying to maintain civilization, but you can't because you don't have enough energy to do it, so you're going to have bad luck doing it. See? So if there wasn't a personification, that means you'd have bad weather, you have all kinds of stuff that hamper your objective to try to, you have droughts, you have all kinds of things like that that will hamper your ability to have a civilization, to have a family. See? Wild animals, disease, you have all these different things that will hamper your ability because you have bad luck. But if you make somebody a personification of that bad luck, right, then you would have those things, but then you have an enemy that's constantly fighting you, tearing those things down. See? So in other words, if you don't have the personification, then you can't see it. Or man, a drought shows up, a blizzard shows up. You can't see it. But once you make somebody a personification, then here they come. Here comes winter. So here comes Mr. Winter. Here comes Miss Blizzard. And you have opportunity to avoid them. Hope you understand that, brothers and sisters. Because that's what we do. Nothing's invisible like they tell you. They can't see the angels, you can't see jinn, you can't see the... No, that's bull. Everything can be seen. You can't see it just because you don't recognize it, just like an undercover agent. So they're personification of our problems. And the beauty of that is that when you have bad luck, right? And you say, oh man, all these bad things are happening bad. You might not know when it's going to end, if it's going to end at all. See? So in other words, you can tell this winter's over because the spring comes and all the ice melts. So, the ice starts melting pretty soon, all is gone. All the trace of winter is gone. So when you have people that's personification of the bad luck, see, when the summer comes, right, they lose power. Because their power is, in other words, look at it this way. You have, the earth it takes 24 to 25,000 years to complete its rotation. It's on its axis. See? So we write history every 25,000 years. Just round it up to 24,000. That's 4 seasons. 6, 6, 6, 6. 4 seasons. Right? Each 6,000 year periods. So they're the winter season. We're in the winter season right now. We start moving to the spring. The springs start beginning at the end of our enslavement at 2019. So 2020 begin the spring season. But we've been in this winter season for the last 6,000 years. So now, and they had power because they were winter people. See? So you couldn't do anything with them because that winter, they was in the season of winter and that gave them power. See? Just like when you go through the winter, you can't do anything. You got to deal with the winter. You got to deal with the snow, the sleet, if you're in a winter climate. See? And you can't do anything. The spring comes to alleviate that situation. So the same thing. They was a winter people, and so they had power during the winter. They had power. And the winter strengthened them, gave them power. But now the spring has come, their power has dissipated. They don't realize it. They still got the instincts of the winter, but they have no power of it anymore. See? That's why they're crumbling. They don't realize it. See? Because now it's the spring. Spring brings forth new life. It's about to bring forth our nation, our new nation. Hope you understand that, brother. Since I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Okay. So now, amongst themselves, the Europeans, they've been very violent people amongst themselves. When they was bottled up in Europe for 1,000 years, read chapter 20. Read it again. That's their history. That's nothing about some millennia in the future. That's their history. And they was bottled up in Europe for 1,000 years by the Prophet Muhammad's empire that kept them bottled up in Europe for 1,000 years. They're very violent with each other because they're violent by nature. So they express the energy that they had in a violent manner towards each other, each individually and plus nation states. The British was against the French was against the Germans against the Russians. They was very violent with each other and plus violent amongst themselves. within the nation state, they was very violent amongst themselves because they're violent by nature. They're violent by nature. See? And so when they came out 1,000 years later, as it says in chapter 20 of Revelations, they went out and covered the whole world, a world they didn't realize it existed before. That's Gog and Magog. That's America and Britain. It's not Russia. Because it'd be two world empires. And you couldn't have two world empires before then, 500 years ago, because they didn't even know there was a whole world. So you got the British Empire and the American Empire. It's the only two empires that rule the entire world. Okay? So like I said, they was very violent with each other. See? And then once, over here in America, once they brought us over here, they became more peaceful with each other, more Gentile. They started talking about freedom and justice and equality. See? They started talking about those things because their violence was being used against us. See, they was relieving their violence tendencies by beating off on us. They had us to beat off on. So therefore, they wasn't violent to each other because they used their violent energy. It was used against us. And so when which was dissipated, then they was Gentile with each other. See, other Europeans, they were still fighting over there. The Napoleonic War, what's his name? Well, I just said it, right? Napoleon, I understand it right. Napoleon, his wars, the Napoleonic Wars, so forth over in Europe, they were still fighting with each other over there. But America, amongst the Europeans here, they was pretty Gentile with each other. You see, because they had us to beat up on. They would satisfy their violent tendencies by beating up on us, and they was merciless. But they allowed them to be Gentile with each other because they beat up on us. You see? But then when we got the first burst of positive energy that broke our chains, they couldn't beat up on us as much anymore. See, it broke our chains for us, but at the same time, it caused them because they couldn't beat up on as much as they were, they started beating each other again. That's so-called civil war. They went to war with each other. At the same time that we broke our chains, they was at war with each other. See, because you got to understand the connection there. See, when they was able to beat them on us without any restraint, relentlessly, unrestrained, right? Then they was able to exercise their negative, their violent tendencies, and so they was peaceful with each other. Slave master got pissed off his wife or something. He go and beat up one of the female slaves, maybe the male slave too, rape her or rape him, and then he was calm. Then he go home. He could be home. He be calm now because he just got finished exercising that negative impulses on us. And so they did this for 400 years. But then when we started getting that, we first got the first burst of energy, negative, positive energy that strengthened us. Then it was harder for them to exercise their negative tendencies against us as much as they had before. So they start exercising themselves again. That was a civil war. Hope you understand this. See? And then what happened? 50 years later, in the 1910s, right, when we got another burst of energy, right, we started talking about Marcus Garvey and all these people come in, right? Then we had more energy to protect ourselves. See? We still was under their control, but they had less control of us than they had before. So but then in World War I, see? Because they couldn't exercise all that energy, negative, violent energy against us, so they started against themselves again. And then what happened? See, and this process continued. Okay, so we're talking about controlled violence. Now, where does controlled violence come in this? This is where it's complicated. I'm going to try to explain this as best I can, brothers and sisters. And you science brothers and sisters out there, maybe you might understand it better than most. Maybe I may not understand it all. Now, it's a concept. I'm going to see if I can explain it best I can. It's like a pressure cooker. See, when you put more heat under it, right, the molecules move around faster and faster and faster. And since they can't get out of the pot, the pressure builds up. And that's why a pressure cooker is so effective, cooks so fast. See, because normally the water would boil and come out the pot. So that will cool it off because it had some place to expand to. But a pressure cooker keeps it from coming out. So that means that the molecules move faster, 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 faster. That's the heat, the pressure builds up because the pressure is heat in that situation. So their violent tendencies increased. Now, we live in a pressure system. Like we're molecules in this pressure system. So as the pressure increases, we move around faster and faster and faster. Okay. But say, for instance, we move around, moving at speed, I'm just hypothetically, we move at a speed of 5 miles per hour, right? 2 miles per hour, right? So that's we're walking faster and faster, right? Then we have to move faster. We move in a bicycle, so we can move faster. Because soon, as our minds generate what we need. I'm gonna say this. Okay. The molecules move faster and faster and faster. So if you move fast, okay, we can move. We can walk so fast. We can run so fast. But if the heat moves, we have to move faster. Then we can run and walk. Our minds will create the ability to do that. Our minds will create the ability to do that. So like a bicycle. Your mind will do because you have to move that fast. And your mind will control the environment, control your mind will bring about the device or whatever you need, right? To move faster. So now you move faster. It's up to 30 miles an hour. Well, then you invent a car. See. Because you're going to move that fast. You got to move that fast. So your mind just takes and create this situation where you can to do that. Hope you understand that, brothers and sisters. That's a very powerful concept. And I'm always doubtful that I can really get people to understand that. See? Because that's how minds work. See? Our mind is designed to keep in sync with the situation around us. So if we have to move, if the pressure is causing us to move at 100 miles an hour, then our minds will create, because we can't do that physically, our minds create a means to move at 100 miles an hour. See? Because we control the environment around us. It's not like some misregard doing this. We do it. So I hope you understand that concept. But you have to be creative to do that. Your mind creates the vehicle, right? Now you got two types of minds. You got two types of brains. You got the analytical and you got the spatial. Now the spatial is creative. Analytical is technical. So it's like the spatial creates the blueprints. The technician takes the blueprints and brings them into existence. Okay? So the Caucasian mind, they're totally analytical. Now we don't want that, but that's totally, I'm not going to go into all detail, but they're totally analytical. Totally technical. They're very technical. And we're totally spatial. Almost. We're 90% spatial and 10% technical. See? But they're 100% technical. And so they have nothing to restrain that technical, analytical, mind they have, brain they have. See? So we can live with somebody that's 90% technical and 10% spatial because they have enough spatial to maintain control of that. Right? But they have no spatial. Totally technical. See? But the technician, he can't do anything unless he get the blueprints. So all the Europeans are technical, but they need the blueprints. And we provide the blueprints. So when we got the first energy wave in 18-something, the first positive one, because the universe is contracting, and we see the first positive one that gave us enough energy to break our chains, it also sped up everything, because remember, it's energy, and everything speeds up. Now, technical mind, right, it doesn't have the creative ability, right, to bring into existence something that allows them to move that fast, because then they have to move faster. So it's like this traffic thing you see here, right? So imagine you have a lot of cars, and you don't have any roads, have any traffic guys, no lights, no traffic signs, anything. So they just running into each other, bumping each other like one of those dirt, what they call it, derbies or whatever. Everybody just, all the cars just bumping each other, right? Collision derbies or whatever they call it. So you got all these cars just, so then you're gonna have all kinds of accidents and everything. Then they're gonna just wipe out each other. See? But then somebody comes along and say, okay, no, make some roads, make some traffic signs and everything else. And now the cars can move really fast. And, right? Because now it's controlled. It's controlled violence. See, it's controlled violence. See, because it's still energy, but now it's controlled. And so what I'm saying is that once we start getting positive energy, right, then for the Europeans, right, that means greater pressure. So they start conflicting with each other because there's no control. So when you have no control, it means that's pressure. Everything's colliding with each other. And the more they collide, right, the collision becomes more damaging. It becomes fatal. Because if you have porcelain balls colliding with each other, they just tap each other. That's one thing. But it gets more violent. After a while, they crack and they break because they can't take the force of them colliding at the high speeds. So that's what was happening because they would have just been, right, more energized, but since they're chaotic by nature, right, and they don't have the creative, so they move faster, but that frustration would bring more greater collisions, and they would have destroyed themselves. See, they would destroy themselves in the process. But they had us here, and we the creative. I keep explaining to you, we the creative. That's why they don't want to let us go, because we the creative. The whole story about Joseph, remember, they didn't know what to do. And the king had to call on Joseph to tell him how to save the society, because they wasn't creative. Joseph was the one that didn't. How did he get rewarded? He got rewarded by his children being, his descendants being enslaved. That's the story of us. See, Joseph represents 64 years. It took to train us, to reprogram us into be Negro butts. See? And then so we rode first Negro bus came off the assembly line in 1619. You see, it was programmed, took 64 years to program us. Okay, Negro butts, remember that. So, I hope I'm not going too fast here. So, they would have just been colliding with each other. See, but we, creative side, remember, the techno side can't do anything without the creative side, because you have to get in blueprints and stuff. Once you get in blueprints, they go to work. So and see, this is the hidden story, like the hidden figures. They don't tell you the whole thing. That's why, remember, they tell you that Joseph had to save the society. Daniel had to save the society. They couldn't do it themselves. So they got the ideas from us and said, oh no, build some roads. See, build some signs. So now they're not colliding with each other. See, so they still got the violence, but it's controlled now. See, no collisions, controlled violence. See, because if we hadn't been here, they would have destroyed themselves back in the 1800s, and that would have been the end of them. See, excuse me. But we gave them the ability to control the violence instead of colliding with each other. See, excuse me. Let me hold on for a second here, brothers and sisters. So we had the ability to move faster without colliding with each other. See, without being violent with each other. Control violence. See. So then, right, that's in the 1800s, right, we start, they didn't have cars back then, right, but we start giving them the means, right, develop the means, we get the blueprints to start, right, to not collide with each other. And so you saw about 50 years later, you saw the evidence of it, cars and things, stuff, these type of things, okay. And then, right, but they're still violent, and the violent tendency still keeps growing. So we gave them more means to control violence, right? See, not just traffic, but computers and all kinds of things control their society, control violence. See, but the violence still overflows. See, America was the only place where all this was coming from. The innovation, because we was here. That's why I asked you, I asked the question, why is America, of all the European countries, of all the countries in the world, this only innovation is coming from here? It's not coming from Germany, it's not coming from France, it's not coming from China. They all copy the innovation that comes from here. Planes, trains, cars, right? iPads, iPods, electricity, all that stuff came from here. But these are things that allow us to control the violence. See? And they have less, and every time we get a positive energy wave, like we got the first one in the 1860s, the next one in the 19 around 10s, and then that means that they have less ability to exercise their negative, their violent tendency on us, right? So they have the violence on themselves, but then we give them technology, right, so that they can take and control that violence. You see, but the violence just keeps growing. It just keeps growing because they're violent by nature. See, so they have all this technology and everything, right, that control their violence. That's what it is. And it's only come from here because we the creators. We got a creative mind, and it gives them the ability to do it. Because if they didn't have this ability to do it, they would have been blown themselves up by now because they had because they're chaotic by nature. And so we give them these ideas, right, so they can control the violence. So instead of having traffic jams, right, or collisions, right, they have controlled traffic, so nobody's colliding with each other. But still, the energy is being diverted in a constructive way, instead of in a violent way. Controlled violence. See? But now, the violence comes so great that even with all this, they're still violent against each other. That's what you see going on in Europe right now. That's what said Armageddon will be a war in Europe, because they become so violent. Even with all these controls, they still, because the whole idea with these controls to get them see if we can control their violence. They see if we control their violence. Because we can control their violence, then we might let them stay around. That's what Adam was told. Listen, obey. Because if you don't obey, this won't happen to you. But they refuse, and so therefore their violence, we've tried to control their violence. See? Because I said they excellent technicians, but still, with all these techniques we're giving them, they can't. And so they got, the whole world has got these techniques, and it's still not enough. The only thing we can do now, right, is to take and give them wisdom, techniques that takes them out of the earth sphere out to the universe. And we're never going to let them take that violence out there. We're never going to let them take that violence out there. Because you'll have solar wars, you have galactic wars, right? Constellational wars. No, we're never going to let them take that out there, ever. And that's where this comes to an end. Because they got the whole world, they're still violent. Got all these techniques to control their violence, and they still balance above that. It's not enough. So there's no way to control their nature, their violent nature. See? Right now, we control if they didn't have this, they would have totally destroyed themselves by now. But this it keeps it down, it dampens it, right? See? But it doesn't stop it. It still spreads because they're violent by nature. So they got all these techniques to control that violence, and they still, even with that, they're still violent. But if they didn't have this, it'd be gone already. See? And it's us that's giving them the wisdom. Our creativity is the one that's providing this controlled violence to the extent that it's controlled. See? But the only thing we can do now is give them controlled violence that will allow them getting out to the universe, and we're never going to let that happen. We're never going to let that happen. They bind here to this planet, and we're never going to let them go beyond it. Oh, they go. They never go. They never gonna get out. Oh, they never gonna go. I mean, they got ships they send out there, but that's nothing. They're not gonna get out there themselves. Never gonna let it happen. So now it's time to bring them to an end. See, and they about to do it themselves because we're not gonna give them any more techniques to dampen their violent nature. So that means it's gonna overflow to collisions. Even with all this here, that's why you see they're starting to wars warming up in Europe. Even with all these controls, war still is warming up, and it's going to eventually. It's not going to spread as Lion Farrakhan says. He don't know. He's just talking, but it falls in the category of wars and rumors of wars. It falls in that category. Okay. But the war is coming. It's going to break out in the Middle East first, between false Israel and Iran, and that's going to have. That's going to cripple America and Britain. They're going to be thrown out the Middle East, and they will leave false Israel abandoned and under siege. That's the abomination of desolation. See? Because their violent tendency just cannot be restrained. We dampen it, we control it to a great extent, but we couldn't control it 100%. Because even with all these here, they got computers, phones to communicate. They got all kinds of movies that they can sit around and relieve their violence by watching these violent movies. All this stuff is an effort to control their violence. Because you see violence everywhere. All their movies are violent, their cartoons are violent, right? See? Their video games are violent, everything. Because it's trying to get them to control their violence in a constructive way. But their violence is unlimited. So even with all this, they still find violence against themselves. They go out and they're mad, they go out and beat the dog to death, right? And then come and still beat the wife anyway. See? They went out there, they were angry, so they went out there and beat the dog to death, get all that frustration off. And then still come back and beat their wife anyway. See? But the dog wasn't there, right? They would have killed her. See, so she only got it beaten because he was able to express a lot of his anger on the dog. You understand? See, so in other words, he got maybe 50, 80% off on the dog, so he spent another 20% off on her. See, if he got 100% off on the dog, then he wouldn't have. He came out, he'd be peaceful. Hi, honey. You got to understand how this works, brothers and sisters. See, so we're able to calm their violence down maybe like 70%. All this technology and everything got probably calmed them, because if they didn't have this, they would have already been destroyed. This place, they would have destroyed Earth, destroyed us, everything. So we got their balance. All these things have probably got their balance down. Sports, they look all the energy they get off watching sport. Oh man, look how energy they get off watching these violent movies. You see. So that allows them to express a lot of their violent tendencies, to alleviate them. But still, with all that, it maybe only solves about 70%. They still got 30%. And so we can't, it's impossible to control, unless we give them much more advanced technology. And we're not going to do that, because that would allow them to get into the universe. The technology would get them to control their violence, again, tendency to a higher level, would be the same technology that would allow them to get into the universe. Same technology. See, look all the technology they have now. We gave them the technology we gave them to control their violence to this extent allowed them to make atomic bombs and everything else. You see? Because you can use the technology any kind of way you want to. But the technology needed to get them to quell their violence to a higher extent, to maybe 90%, would be the same technology would allow them to get out to the universe. And we're never going to allow that to happen. As the Quran said, we got strong guards to make sure they can't get out there. So that's why we have to say, no more. So then their violence is increasing, but there's no technology to restrain it. So now they're going to be at war pretty soon. A destructive war, the war of Armageddon, that's going to destroy them. Because we could stop it, but like I said, we'd have to give them more technology, right? In order to quell their violence, and that same technology will allow them to get out to the universe. See, they have planes like those UFOs, right? That we have to give them. We have to give them that type of technology. Technology that Master Muhammad has to build a wheel. We're not giving that technology, and no way. We ain't giving that. And that's what it would require, to quell their violence to a acceptable level. So therefore, there's nothing that we're going to give them. So now the violence will go unrestrained, which is war of Armageddon. So brothers and sisters, I hope you understand. I try to keep it as simple as possible. Control violence. Control violence. And some of you are going to be caught up in this nonsense. It's not nonsense, but some of you are caught up in it. Because you don't, that's what I'm talking about, because you don't understand. You're going to be right in the middle of these wars and things. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you going to get in the middle of their wars? They're the violent ones. See? Because you've been programmed, you're a Negro butt, and now you're going to go and you're going to get yourself killed. That's why it says, come out of her, my people. Especially America, because America is going to be the first to go. And Britain's going to follow right behind. It said, come out of her, my people. So you don't be taking her place and everything, because she's self-destructive. She's destroying herself. And if you stay here, you're going to go down with her. We're trying to give you a pathway home. You have a choice. You had a promised land. In the abomination of desolation, Master Muhammad is about to pull a plug to alert you so you understand who you really are. Because if they go down, like these preachers, and they're lying to you, these preachers, these evangelicals and everything, telling you that, excuse me, you Ham, cursed by Noah to be black and all that kind of stuff, and that they're true to Abraham and they're not. If they're true to Abraham, that means they cannot be destroyed. See? But that's what it says. What it says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, their destruction is nigh, is near. Well, what does the hell that mean? Who controls Israel? Who controls Jerusalem? They control Jerusalem. They're talking about them. Say their destruction is near. That means they're going to be destroyed because they're not the real deal. Identity theft. And once they're destroyed, that means the world has to recognize that you seed Abraham, and that's a whole different dynamic. That's a whole different mind construct. See? That's mind bending. That's mind destructive for them, because that changed the picture, that changed the nature of who they are, of what they claim they are, of what they think about themselves. See, because up to now, we Ham. We was born to be slaves. We was cursed to be slaves. See, we cursed black. And so therefore enslaving us was God's will. And this America is a promised land. So coming and taking the people and destroying, getting rid of their inhabitants is like getting rid of rats and roaches. They own our land. And so they didn't do anything wrong. So they got this very beautiful idea about themselves. You see? I get a knowledge of a person that's ugly as hell, born ugly, but never seen a mirror, and everybody tells them, because they feel sad for them, that they're beautiful. And they go through life thinking that. They're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. They walk around thinking they're beautiful. They never seen themselves. Then one day they walk into a mirror. And at first they, what's that? And then when they come to the realization that it's them, the first thing they're going to do is break that mirror. Because it's going to be mind-shattering for them. That's a revelation. That means it's going to be mind-blowing. First they're going to get rid of that mirror. And you the mirror, brothers and sisters, because you the real deal. And once they realize, right, that, excuse me. Once the realization comes that we're the true seed of Abraham, and they've been cursing us and abusing us and destroying us for 400 some years, that means, who are they? That means they're not God's chosen people. They're not the spiritual seed. They're devils, just like it says. They went out to kill, steal, and destroy. That's exactly how they got America. They stole it, they killed inhabitants, and they destroyed us. So that means they're devils, and that they've been worshiping Satan, and they're going to hell. That's going to be a realization will come on their mind, just like that. And because of you, you're going to be the mirror they have to destroy right away. Hope you understand, brothers and sisters. You're going to get a better warning than this in a few more days. But we're telling you, we're giving you information. We're not actually telling you anything. We're just giving you information. Because the war is on the horizon. See, they're at war now, but America's not at war. I mean, and technically they're not. right? But they're behind the scenes. But that's not the war they're talking about, the war of Armageddon. That's the one that's going to start in the Middle East and spread into Europe like a heart attack. Hope you understand, brothers and sisters, controlled violence. See, us being here, we control their violence. See, because first of all, they exercise their violence off on us. They did that for 400 years. They still do it to some extent. They just can't do it as much as they used to. See, because now we're becoming stronger. See, because the energy invigorates us. It makes us stronger. So they can't exercise on us as much as they used to. They still do it. See. Hope you understand, brothers and sisters. So let me go ahead and hold on for a second, brothers and sisters. Go ahead and check on my audio audience. Okay, we're gonna bring this to a close. Okay, this is the Black Alert hour of the fire zone. Black Alert out. And brothers and sisters, maybe I'll have a part 2 on this. It's a very complex subject. It's something, I think it's for you scientific brothers and sisters out there. It's appropriate at this point in time to understand exactly what's going on in a much more detailed, more scientific way, right? Because their destruction is I think I explained it as best I could, so I hope you understand. See, but we're never going to get them the technology to get out there. See, we have it. That's why they're admitting those so-called UFOs. They admit they exist, but they take technology way beyond theirs, and we're never going to get that to them. See, because they would take that balance and they express it out there, and that'd be. See, we'd never get rid of them. And so then we have galactic wars and Star Wars. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters.